I really didn't want to do this, but I really have to go all the way the fuck in, okay? There was a Facebook post that I saw of a black person who had been put on community, I think he'd been put in Facebook jail, whilst the person that he complained about that was making blatantly racist statements, just a trigger warning, she said fuck black lives repeatedly, just over and over again. You can see that on my Facebook. And whilst I was examining that fucking fiasco, because so many black people have been reported or taken down or put in Facebook jail or Twitter jail for like marginal shit, and yet people can literally say racist things over and over again. I've experienced it. Plenty of other black social media users have experienced it, right? And we get put on Facebook jail. We have the looming threat of being removed from mainstream society and not having our voices heard every single time we even go into a fraction of what we've been through. And yet these white people can feel emboldened to say fuck black lives. You know what? These white racists are being weaponized. They're being played like fucking cheap banjos. And like, they don't care. They know they're being played. They don't care. They know they're being played to their deaths. They know they're being played to the point where, you know, their lives don't matter and have never mattered. They don't care that they're being played. The only thing that they care about is having somewhere to put their narcissistic, impotent rage. They are literally being weaponized in order to shut down the conversation of anti-black, basically black genocide. Because as much as I can sit here and say that, yes, all lives do matter, we're talking about the black ones right now. Because this society is centered around, let's be real, our society is kept afloat by eugenics. Our society is kept afloat by having the most effective whores and the most effective weapons. That is what our society revolves around. And if there is any culture that encourages a connection with nature, that encourages a connection with one another over Big Brother, then they will be eliminated. Black people are not better than anyone else. White people are not better than anyone else. But you have to think about things from a very scientific level, because that is how the powers that be are thinking about it. That's how the secret fraternities are thinking about it. Because you remember, they're alchemists. They're not just working with the occult over there. They're not just working with ritualistic, mystical bullshit, even though it's not bullshit, because, you know, I've studied it. They're not just working with the occult over there. They're not just working with the magical and the mystical. They're also working with the scientific. Everything that they have ever learned about spirituality, what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a linear picture of humanity that falls in line with the astral vision. Meaning, in the physical world, right, black is associated with wealth because of the melanin in our skin. It matches the earth, right? Well, it does for really, really black people anyway. So the melanin in our skin matches the earth. So, you know, and if you really look closely at the way our hair grows and everything else, like, it's actually more in line with plant life. Like, really look at it. Like, really look at it closely. I'm not making shit up. Really look at it closely. It falls more in line with plant life and with vegetable life. So, how do I put this? It's all about genetics with these people. They have to breed people who are the most capable of obedience and who are the most capable of, like, anybody who prioritizes survival over the collective, they are usually the type of people to obey Big Brother. They're more likely to obey Big Brother. Okay? So where I was going with that plant life thing is that I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm trying to think. My thing is, it's all about genetics, and it's all about, you know, this society was built on eugenics, and anything that's closest to nature is a threat to obedience. That's probably the point I was getting at. And like I said before, it's not about races being better than one another. That's not what this is. But again, you have to remember the Freemasonic people, they're alchemists. So they work with, like I said before in this video, they work with the scientific as well as the spiritual. There are all kinds of genetic reasons as to why black people are being eliminated slowly but surely. There's a reason for it. Okay, and so what they want to do is, in the material realm, it might seem, it might appear as though black skin or black people are more in line with the natural, more in line with, the naturalness of the earth. This is where I was going with it. In the material realm, black folk on a purely objective level are more in line with the nature of vegetable life. We're closer to the richness of the earth than other phenotypes. Again, this is really controversial territory that I'm going into. Yeah. That is the reality on the material realm. But on the astral realm, on the quantum realm, okay, it's the opposite. If you have a white soul or you have a white auric field, it means that all your energetic fields on every level are in balance. Whereas black in the astral realm, it represents a void of energy that takes things in. Have you noticed that when people are sick or when people are not well, they have a black aura or they have a dark aura? It's not necessarily because they're evil. It's not necessarily because, they're bad people. It's because they are weak. The toxins within their body or the toxins within their spirit have overtaken them, which means they are in desperate need of healing. So if you see somebody with a gray aura or a black aura, that means they're in desperate need of healing, in desperate need of energy. That's why we get energetic vampires. People don't understand energetic vampires. The way it works is, if you have a black aura, especially, you will gravitate towards people who have an aura of light, a white aura. Because you need the sustenance in order to keep you going. You need the healing, right? The sick go where there's healing. So what the alchemists at the top want to do is they want to match the astral world to the physical one. That's why you keep hearing all this talk about whites being purer or whites being, not so much these days, because these days people won't say things like that. Well, not unless they're really fucking stupid. But in the in older times, there was this connection between white and purity, between white and this, that, and the third, because it's to basically match the energies of the astral realm. So these white alchemists at the top are thinking to themselves, there has to be a way in which we can get white people on this plane to match the energies of the astral realm. And what they want to do with black folk is, well, you can guess the rest. That's why we have so much brutalization in this world. It's not just against black people, let's be clear, it's against everyone. But there is it's like the way they're playing this eugenics thing is like a chessboard. It's like there's going to be one move where it seems like we win, another move where it seems like white supremacists win. But it's all aiming towards a homogenous society that is heavily obedient, that does nothing but breed and work. Okay? That does nothing but breed and work. And that's, I'm sorry to say this, but Caucasian people, and you can check with Caucasian scientists as well. I'm not just saying this because I want to be, fucking problematic and shit. But if you notice, Caucasian people have an easier time fitting into an artificial society than the rest of us do. Now, the rest of us, we might be more resourceful and we might be more this, that, and the third because of the situations that we've been put in. But white folk are more acclimatized to they're more likely to obey the situation. Because if you're more individually minded, the more individually minded you are, the more you will seek a power outside yourself, right? So imagine that you are in a situation where nobody really trusts each other. And if nobody really trusts each other, then they're more likely to trust an outside source. If you're a segregated type of person, you're going to be more likely to trust a source outside yourself and outside your immediate sphere in order to tell you what to do and in order to control you. We've seen this in classrooms. You've seen this. Once you force people to compete with one another, they will compete with one another to appease whoever it was that put the children in competition to begin with. That's what this is like. That's what this is like. They're literally trying to create a world where everybody is obedient. The reason why I bring race into this discussion is not because, I want to say, it's not because I want an all black world or a black supremacy. Like I've never, I've expressed really problematic statements in the past, but the last thing I want is a supremacy based on the color of somebody's skin. I'm sorry, like I've lived with that. That is not something that I want. Okay? That will not help the planet. It will not help anybody. If a supremacy is built on the color of anybody's skin, it's not going to help anyone. And truth be told, most black people don't want that anyways. We just want to live in peace. So if you're thinking that I'm saying all this stuff out of a supremacist, need to be better than someone else, you can get that out of your head right now. I'm simply deconstructing everything and putting everything in perspective. People are being played in accordance with their genetics. The truth of the matter is, the people at the top, the secret fraternities at the top, who are alchemists, who are spiritualists, who are scientists, who are economists, who are lawmakers, they know us better than we know ourselves. And they have dedicated that knowledge towards creating the human race, remaking the human race in their own image. What I talk about with regards to genetics is from an entirely alchemical perspective, because that's how they see it. This whole thing with race science and dividing up people in accordance with how much melanin their skin has, that's all them. That's what they do. That's what they do. And they play people in accordance with that. When they play us based on our racial biases, they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They know that when black people say Black Lives Matter, that even though some white people will listen, a lot of white people will get very defensive. Again, the people at the top are white. They know this. They know us better than we know ourselves. They know exactly how to play us. And the thing that really kills me is that people of all races know what's going on. They know that there's an anti-black current running throughout humanity, and they will do anything to try and avoid the subject. They're always trying to avoid the subject or cheapen the subject or make the subject out to be less serious than it is, because they know there's a thread of anti-blackness running throughout society. They just don't know why it's happening. They just don't know why it's happening. It's a completely alchemical thing. It's not, for them, they think they're actually doing good for humanity. They've literally deluded themselves so much. Like these fraternities, these alchemical fraternities have deluded themselves so much that they're doing good for humanity, that they don't see anti-blackness as a big deal. They don't see it as a big deal. They see it as something that's necessary in order for human beings to be peaceful, to be obedient, and to just breed, work, and provide and maintain a healthy hierarchy. Like that's how they think. A lot of the black people who are talking about, how white people are this, that, and the third and all that, that's a reaction. Most of the time, it's a reaction. It's a reaction to the shit. It's a reaction brought about by anger and research. Problematic as shit, sure, but we have to really examine things. We have to really deconstruct it to understand where racism comes from and why this keeps happening. And what I'm about to say, like, when time I post this on YouTube, it's going to upset a lot of people. It's going to upset a lot of people because the truth is very problematic. The truth of the matter is that these secret fraternities in power, they use race and they will exploit race in order to create the type of human beings, the human beings that they actually want to create. They will do that. Okay? Now, there are white people who say when black people talk about our pain, that there is only one race, the human race. That's true. That is very true. Black is not a race. White is not a race. African is not a race. Caucasian is not a race. They are different types of human. But the alchemists call it a race for a reason. They call us different races for a reason. To imply that black people are different to white, that black people are a different race to white people. Really understand the subtext. To say that brown people are a different race to black people. To say that we're different races in accordance with the color of our skin. Really think about what's being said. There is only one race, the human race. So why is it a race war? It's because we've been dehumanized deliberately. We've been dehumanized deliberately. And not just black folk, everyone. It's just that when it comes to white people are more likely to obey the established order than black folk are. And if you need any further proof of that, observe our cultures, observe the ways in which we've done things, observe the ways in which we've learned to become resourceful and created our own cultures out of nothing, even after everything was ripped away from us. You have to look at the results of what's going on. You have to judge things by results. You can't, I want to acknowledge other people's feelings because I'm really not the type of person to care about race like that when it comes to my friends. In the first place, I don't see white people as a different race to me because we're all human. But the alchemists see it differently. They see different genetics. They see different ways of doing things. They see different this, different that. So they know exactly how to play us. But that's not what's making me angry. Because just because this whole race thing, is engineered and a whole setup, it doesn't mean that there aren't anti-black races out there. It doesn't mean that there aren't anti-black racists or anti-woman misogynists out there. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that it's illusion piled up on top of illusion. That's not what makes me angry. What makes me angry is not the racism. It's not the sexism. It's not anything like that. I really thought about it. It's not the racism that pisses me off or the sexism that pisses me off. It's not the bigotry that pisses me off. What pisses me off is humanity as a whole. Humanity pisses me off because we all know what's going on. We all know there's an anti-black thread running throughout humanity. We all know our own governments have been experimenting on us, and we all know our governments have been exploiting us. We all know our governments have insured us, so in case we don't bring in any returns, they can just kill us off. Like, we all know what's going on. We all know that the mentally ill were right all along when they said they were being experimented on. We all know that the mentally ill were right all along. We all know that black people were right all along. Targeted individuals were right all along. Women were right all along. Fucking queer folk were right all along. We knew they were right the whole time. No apology, no acknowledgement. Not even deigning to fix the issue. We all know what's happening to us. We all know what the powers that be are doing to us. And what the fuck are we doing? I live in a neighborhood where people, but like gang stalking is an open secret. Everybody knows. People have been bitching about social cleansing for decades. Everybody knows. People have been bitching about how black people have been mistreated in psychiatric hospitals and in medical hospitals. Everybody knows. Everybody knows what's going on. And only a handful of people deign to do anything about it until it's too late. A handful. Out of how many billion? And we all know what's going on? So when somebody comes along confirming what you know about society and how you know what you know about society and how corrupt it is, when somebody comes along confirming to you what you already knew, what the fuck do? You defame the ones who tell the truth. You libel them. You dehumanize them. You add to their grief. That's what you do. I've done it too. Everybody's done it. That's what the fuck we do. Those who had the wisdom and the understanding to try to get the truth to us, we slandered them. We called them all the names under the sun, and whatever counterintelligence came your way, whatever fucking, like this flat earth bollocks, the way the public clung to that like a limpet and associated targeted individuals with that, satanic ritual victims with that, MK Ultra victims with that, super soldier victims with that. You all knew. Every single person knew. The only people who didn't know were children. You all knew what was going on, and you can't tell me you didn't. You all knew what was going on. You all know what's going on. And yet, what are you doing about it? Hell, what am I doing about it? I'm out here arguing with people online about fucking, like, who the fuck cares what these idiots think? In fact, they don't think. So it's not even worth arguing with them. The hardest thing for me to accept is that not only can all of us not do the same thing that we've been doing, I can't do the same thing I've been doing either. It's just not going to work anymore. It's not going to work. We all know what these people are doing to, like, what the fuck are we doing? Are we really so cowardly that we would favor a comfortable life over a free one? Are we really so evil that we'd rather have village idiots to throw our rocks at than to attack the society that created those village idiots? Like, I hear documentaries and fucking news items talking in the most disgusting fashion about people who have been broken and neglected and who knew the world was wrong from the get-go and had nobody listen to them, just being treated in the most disgusting ways, mocked in the most disgusting ways, laughed at in the most disgusting ways. And the only time when you actually hear them is when some crackpot talks about flat earth, or when some crackpot talks about, oh, you know, white people are the real oppressed ones. That's the only time when you actually fucking listen. But you don't want to listen when we're talking to you about real shit. You want to talk about the bombings. You want to talk about the bombing in the US in 1985 against an inner city. You want to talk about the drugs being flooded into American ghettos by the CIA. I shouldn't say that word, but you want to talk about social cleansing over here in the UK. You want to talk about black people being edged out of our own music. And yet when us targets come along and tell you exactly how that managed to get there, when even mentally ill people who don't know, when even mentally ill people who, tell you what's going on and tell you what's being done to them, you just assume they're doddery and they don't know what they're supposed to be, doing. You got mentally ill people running from psych wards. Sick people run towards their healing. They don't run away from it. And again, targeting, I'm living in a whole community where everybody knows about targeting, and a good number of people are doing it. But I can't blame them. You know why? Because everyone in the world knows that something's wrong. They know something's wrong. They ain't done jack shit. Just left it to a handful of people, by comparison, a handful of people in comparison to the rest of us, to fight and die. Left it to a handful of people to do what's right for everybody else. Left it to a handful of people to engage in philanthropic acts. We left it to a handful of people to take care of our mess. And even as the result of your selfishness, of our cowardice, of our brattiness, of our lies, of our meanness, even when the results are right in front of us, what are we doing? Literally, I'm over here dealing with people who, I talk to myself a lot, right? And I talk to myself about literally everything under the sun, but mostly politics. And when I'm getting angry and when I'm throwing a fit and shit like that, the only thing these people can find to do is laugh. Like, literally, they know what's going on. They know people are being killed off. They know vulnerable people are being killed off deliberately by sociopaths. They know. And it's those vulnerable people being killed off by sociopaths. It is this racially segregated urban planning. All of it was derived from the social behavioral experimentation that is being carried out on fucking targets secretly. There would be no Black Lives Matter without this. There would be no black people getting killed on the street without this. There would be no coronavirus, no nothing like that without this. Are you not getting it? Are you not getting it? I'm not angry about the bigotry. People are going to be bigoted. It used to anger me. It used to really piss me off. But no, I can't get pissed off at that now. Because if people are too cowardly and stupid to do what they're supposed to do in the first place and take their head out of their ass, then what's the point in getting angry at racism? What's the point in getting angry at sex? What's the point in getting angry at any kind of bigotry when I see what human beings prioritize over their own lives? What's the point? It's a waste of my time. I'm literally over here having to, not just me, there are so many TIs whose only link is online, having to slay demons by themselves. The key, the answer to everything that's going on, the answer to the famine, the answer to why our children are getting sicker, the answer to why race wars are threatening to loom, the answers to why fascism is threatening to get its ugly grip around this world. The answers are all in your own community and in your own cells. And what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing about it? Why is it always the same people? What the fuck are you doing about it? You've got dark alchemists who have taken that craft, who have taken the craft of making something beautiful and making something useful and turned it into something evil, turned it into something dystopian, turned it into something ugly, turned it into something depraved and deformed. What are you doing about it? You live in a world in which everything is being weaponized against you. What are you doing about it? Why is it only a handful of people thinking about what you should all be thinking about? When are you going to take your heads out of your asses? And again, when it proves out that the conspiracy theorists were right, when the truthers were right, I don't see any humility from many of those people making videos saying we were talking crap. I don't see any humility. I don't see any acknowledgement of their own horridness. I don't see any acknowledgement of the ways in which they made this world worse. I don't see that either. I don't see that from any of you. When I became a targeted individual, I had to accept the fact that I was part of this world. And I was part of what made it bad. I had to accept that. I had to try and change. And nobody else is doing that. And if they are doing that, they're doing it too fucking late. And don't get me wrong, I know I'm not the only person in the world learning new things. Like, no, I'm not going to be that arrogant. But I'm just saying, it's a handful of us. It's about high time the rest of you took over. You know that Europe and the north of the planet, you know that they're involved in molecular science, and they're using that molecular science to reshape and reform humanity into obedient drones. So instead of blaming one another for this, why don't we get off our asses, read our books, read up on alchemy. First of all, read up on alchemy, read up on the law, read up on economics, read up on actual useful shit, and find out how we're being played. And then go out and do something about it. I'm not saying everybody has to be like me, but some self-awareness wouldn't fucking hurt. I mean, Jesus Christ. Look inside yourself. You knew what this world was. You can't say you didn't know. But you played along with it because you thought if you didn't, you'd just be nothing. You were right. Now instead of nothing, you're less than nothing. And you will always be less than nothing unless you do something to help this world. And stop relying on the same fucking people to do your emotional labor for you. Get off your ass.